Hey everybody, this is Dylan. We're here with Dr. Joel Fuhrman at the NHA Conference. You're about to talk about nutritional advances. Give us a little intro of what you're going to talk about today.
Well, right. I'm going to say that these advances in modern nutritional science have supported, in a sense, the history of this movement where we've been coming from. But we'll be able to tweak it to make it more specific, more precise, and give people more ability to predict their lifespan, live to be 100 years old, narrow the bell-shaped curve. You know what I mean by a bell-shaped curve?
Mm-hmm.
The average American lives around, let's say, 80 years old. But it's a very wide bell, which means for every person who lives to be 80, even at centers at 80, some die at 70, some live to be 90. Some live to be 60, some live to be 100. Very few live to be 100. Only 1 in 10,000 people. Even in Okinawa, in the blue zone, it's only 6 in 10,000. In other words, not many people live to be 100, but in any case, the bell is spread out very wide. You don't know where you're going to live. 69, 68, 84, 82, it's a crapshoot. And then, once you're living past the age of 75, most Americans have very poor health. And they're really not enjoying it. Very small probability of having an enjoyable life with their full mental and physical capacity intact. They can do sports, do physical activities, have their full mental faculties and creativity to do when they're younger. Most Americans that live past 80, past the mean, are not having a good quality of life. Mm-hmm. And what modern nutritional science enables us to do today is to narrow the bell and shift to 20 years to the future. By narrowing the bell, you don't get that wide spread of people dying at 70. More people are going to live between 95 and 105. So the people with weaker genetics might live to be their mid-90s. People with better genetics might push over 100. But you're not going to see the wide spread going across 40 years, making your lifespan and your health span a crapshoot. We're talking about having a healthy life expectancy and having a long play span in your life. You know what I mean by a play span? Is being able to play and have fun in the years that you're alive and living, and to live without fear and without the discomfort of medical care and the invasiveness and fear and harmfulness of having needless medical interventions. That's available for us today. So we have a unique opportunity in human history. We can take a track of our lives to have really the most healthiest life possible in the history of the human race, to agree with what we know about science and nutrition and the ability to use modern transportation methods to get these foods that we have available to us, get the variety of foods and nutrients into our body that we know are so important. Yet while we have the same opportunity, we also have the vast majority of Americans taking the track to eat processed foods, fast foods, and to use food to create suicide. And those foods are highly addicting. And we have a whole nation of overweight, sickly people. And so you have both extremes living side by side in today's society.
And the awareness isn't there. It's not like the people that are experiencing this chronic illness and these issues are fully aware of it, are they?
The vast majority are not aware they had a choice.
Right.
That's always been my biggest career mission. And was to say, if you want to smoke cigarettes, or you want to snort cocaine, or you want to eat donuts, or you want to go to fast food restaurants, you should have that right to do what you want. But you should know how that's going to affect your life. You should know you have a choice not to have psoriasis, not to have rheumatoid arthritis, not to have high blood pressure, and not to have a heart attack and cardiac arrhythmias and requiring your bones melting away and having your brain, losing your mind and developing Parkinson's. You should have an opportunity to know you don't have to have those diseases happen to you if you don't want to. And if you want to take your risks with smoking, go ahead and do it. If you want to take your risks with eating, the way most Americans eat and committing suicide on their plate, go ahead and do it.
So how best to make them aware? Is it the medical system that should be making them more aware? Is it the way that marketing works and food industry works?
See, a lot of people think, well, why don't doctors learn more about nutrition? I don't buy that, and I don't agree with that. I don't think people should wait till they get sick, and they get really sick at the age of 60 or 70 years old, go to a doctor, and the doctor's supposed to be teaching them about nutrition. That's crazy. This should be taught in elementary school, in high schools, and colleges, and in other words, it should be reading, writing, arithmetic, and nutritional science. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to make and a lot of other people, obviously. We're talking about celebrities, politicians, educators, physicians. We're talking about, we need everybody involved, not one person. We need thousands of people to bring this knowledge with the awareness of this information to the public, so they know that where we don't have a diabetes epidemic, where the more people dying of diabetes keeps increasing, where cancer rates keep going up, where obesity rates keep growing up. That people should be learning this information about excellent nutrition.
You mentioned, going back to what you were saying about a curriculum for kids, for example. What do you think that curriculum would actually look like? It seems so simple. Like, I almost like, what do we really have to say? Eat healthy food, this is what they are. Is this something you think kids would need like one time in one year of grade school, or is this something that needs to be repeated over and over? What would that look like?
It needs, because of the negative influence of commercial food and the way that parents are eating and the fact that parents are all food addicts. Don't forget, if you were teaching kids not to eat cocaine, the parents were smoking cocaine and snorting cocaine at home, it would be more difficult. If they were serving the kid cocaine at home, it would be more difficult. So we need to continually reinforce this. It has to be much more in-depth. It has to be, so just like when you study, you go up from, in school, you study basic math, and then you move on to algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus. You have a series of events, right? Don't you move
so
up,
you want the scientific biological processes explained as well? You think that would be necessary?
Yes, nutritional science should be part of the school curriculum, and people should be learning how basic nutrition, how diseases are caused by food, how food addiction develops, how nutrition can reverse disease, and how we can extend human lifespan and prevent human suffering and solve crime, anger, violence, criminal behavior with food. Because part of this process is that 1 in 5 Americans are mentally ill. 100 years ago, it was 1 in 100 Americans are mentally ill. And nobody's discussing the link between food and mental illness. And nobody's discussing the link between the diet the parents ate before they conceived the baby to childhood cancers and the development of autism and autoimmune disease. And nobody's discussing these diseases that when you eat candy and fast food as a child, your chance of being arrested for a violent crime goes up by 70%. We're talking here that there's so much to be learning, and when these children were really learning the right things in schools, we would fix our society in a host of different ways that would penetrate deeply, and it would just save a tremendous amount of human tragedy. More people are killed from eating unhealthfully than all the wars put together and everything, So it's the number one killer and destroyer and tragedies that are occurring because of food. More than nothing comes close. Not drugs, not smoking,
right.
Nothing comes close to food.
It sounds like we're dreaming a little. So let's keep dreaming. How would we pull it off? Can we get it in the public schools? How would we go about this? With all of the powers that be pushing against it, like kids are required to have a carton of milk at every lunch right now in whatever states, and it's like, where do we even start if we were going to try to change that?
Well, we start by having a more informed population so that so eventually where people spend their economic dollar matters, and when people feel strongly, enough people feel strongly about an issue, it becomes more public awareness. Take, for example, Mayor Bloomberg in New York, where he tried to reduce the size of sodas from, let's say, 24 ounces to 12 ounces, or I don't even know what the numbers were, but whatever he tried to do, he tried to cut it back. The legislature didn't pass the law. But all the publicity talking about that made people in New York start eating healthier, and soda consumption plummeted like 80%. And he also passed other laws that were successful, where he allowed vendors in street corner carts to be selling fruits and vegetables, and to be able to take food stamps and credit cards. And he started to give tax incentives for supermarkets to open up in poor areas. And the lifespan of New York has increased dramatically during those years and subsequent to that. What I'm saying is that that's just one person and how he initiated a whole nutritional program in New York City area that did help people. It's a start, but it has to. But it can't be just the 1 or 2 politicians. We need people in influence. We need many politicians. We need celebrities. We need athletes. We need people of all aspects of society banding together. And if we do that with enough of a voice, eventually the scientific validity of this message will come through.
So I'm hearing you say it's going to come more from public opinion and the momentum we have here, rather than science influencing our politics and government and policy work that would then, have these.
Because right now what influences government and policy is money, and the drug industry and the food industry are the major lobbyists in effect. So they prevent this message from getting out. But as you know, as the public learns more, then we get things done. And nutritional excellence I call a nutritarian diet. Nutritarian, just to make it simplify, that word means a diet rich in the nutrients humans need to live long, healthfully, without the fear of disease, because they're nourishing their body to the, with excellence. And also, my other passion is showing people that you're not giving up flavor, taste, enjoyment, or pleasure by living healthfully. You're enhancing it, not reducing it. And healthy foods can be prepared and do taste phenomenal. And those of us who are nutritarians, eating this healthfully, we're not enjoying our food less than other people that are, recreationally dining. You know what I mean?
But it takes time to go from get through that period of thinking that the food doesn't taste good. Tell us about that.
It does
how
take
you help people through that.
It does take time. I have numerous books I've written about food addiction. Videos, conferences, lecture at medical conferences. I've written scientific journal articles published on this topic of food addiction. And because it's been so much of my career dealing with people who are overweight and sickly because of what they ate, I even have a retreat where people can come in for 2 to 3 months because their addictions are so strong that they need help and a time where they could be separated, physically separated from the attraction of sugar and oil and what they've been eating because they can't control their own behavior because food is so highly addicting, it takes over your primitive brain and you become dopamine dependent and you keep wanting that hit. So some people need more help than others. Mm-hmm. And so I want to help people solve their obstacles. If they want to get healthy and become, if type 2 diabetic wants to become non-diabetic or get rid of their heart disease and not have angioplasty and not go through these horrible, not get leg amputations and infections and go blind and macular degeneration and diabetic retinopathy and get demented, we can help people get healthy. And even if they're having trouble, I have food addiction counselors and psychologists that work for me, working with these people. So we have a whole series of, services, both online, phone, in person, and even a retreat where people can come to make sure if there's a person that really wants to get well, they have the services available to them so they can earn back their health.
When someone spends some time at the retreat and then they leave, how do we make sure they keep eating right? How do we, help them to beat the pressures from their social circles and all these things?
That's why they're staying there for 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
That's why going away for a week or 2 or 3 to a health facility or a health spa or something doesn't work. People go on these restrictive diets. No matter what they're restricting. They lose weight, they're getting a little healthier, they go home, they're negative social environments, they're people they're associated with, the temptation of eating more conventionally gets to them and they go back to their old way of eating, gain the weight back. The money they spent, the time they spent, what they learned was wasted. It's of no benefit until they maintain this way of eating when they go home.
So you're finding it's a timing issue. It's the
not
longest amount of time you can do it.
You go to a cocaine rehab facility, you're there for 3 months. They only come in for 10 weeks. It has to be 12 weeks.
Okay.
If you go in for 2 or 3 weeks, you're not going to be able to sustain this unless you go longer. So we keep people a longer period of time, number one. We also have psychotherapists that work with people, and they're learning the cooking skills, and they exactly learning what to eat, how to make the recipes, and how much to eat too, because they've lost control of how much they're supposed to be eating. So they learn it, and then they see they're losing they're losing maybe 15 or 20 pounds the first month, but the second month when they're losing they settle down to losing about 2 pounds a week. What I'm saying right now is that when we discharge people and they're still overweight, we want to continue losing 2 pounds a week as they go home, and they're in contact with us to maintain that they knew what to do, they know how to maintain the 2 pounds a week, and they have to continue that when they go home. And I tell people that you're not a nutritarian unless you're at a favorable weight, or you're losing weight towards that favorable weight and continuing to lose at 2 pounds a week. It's that 1 pound every 3 days or a kilogram a week, which really defines the fact that you're losing insulin resistance, your fat cells aren't activating aromatase. When the aromatase enzyme produces estrogen, so you're not producing excess estrogen driving cancer. Your fat cells aren't spewing out cytokines and lipokines, kinds of pro-inflammatory substances, and increasing angiogenesis promotion. In other words, your fat on your body is dangerous. Mm-hmm. It becomes less dangerous, or it becomes non-dangerous when you're still overweight if you're losing at a certain rate. All the negative aspects of fat decreases dramatically. We want people to continue their progress. Like a woman stayed at my facility and lost 50 pounds when she was there. The year she was sent home, she lost another 150. She lost 200 pounds the first year. She had tried diets. She had went away to health retreats and places like this in the past, and she never could maintain the benefit. But that's what makes what I'm trying to achieve is that when they go home, they can maintain it. They've gone through their obstacles, where they've made the mistakes. They've given enough time to retrain their taste buds, and they've lost their addictive drive to overeat these foods, and they know they feel so great, and they know the impediments of where they blew it in the past and the psychological and emotional problems that are being resolved as to why they use food as a crutch or as a, so I really think we increase the probability that a person can stay with this forever. Mm-hmm. So the investment in doing this is going to be born with long-term benefits that are going to be the rest of their life.
One common question I get is about supplementation. I know that I've heard you talk about it before. Not everybody needs to supplement. Can you talk broadly about what the broad, supplementation might be for people who eat like us?
Right. Most people don't eat healthfully like us. They eat junk food diets. And there's so many nutrients we need in real natural plant foods. And I'm teaching people and advocating people eat a full spectrum of different food varieties and phytochemicals to maximize our immune system. But we're also, and so most Americans, they can't get health out of a supplement because there's so many thousands of nutrients and the diversity of nutrients they can't get in their diet, and a supplement can't duplicate what food can. But the issues are that when we move towards a vegan diet or we adopt a vegan diet, then we're missing certain nutrients that we do get from animal products that do extend lifespan and protect our brain with aging. One of those nutrients, for example, is B12, right? So your B12 levels could be low. In my career as a physician, I've seen 4 people with severe damage from B12 deficiency. One was a man who was a national kickboxer who couldn't walk well anymore. He lost his balance. He was on a vegan diet, and he had to stop doing physically active things, and his brother brought him in on his shoulder and trying to walk, couldn't walk by himself. And when he noticed his B12 deficiency, he got better. He recovered and was able to walk again. I had another person who was in a wheelchair or couldn't come in from B12 deficiency who did not get better. They waited too long to figure out it was B12 deficiency. This is a long time ago. It's like 20 years ago, I've seen. And then certain people have actually, in this movement, have passed away due to B12 deficiency. I know, for example, I saw T.C. Fry was one of the founders of the natural hygiene, one of the person who was really into the natural hygiene. I saw his blood tests where he was severe B12 deficiency and on hyperhomocysteine era causing his disease, accelerating and probably the main cause of his death. And I've seen patients like that have come to me over the years who actually, remember one woman, she flew in from Europe. She was in a Scandinavian country, and when I said to her, and she had atherosclerosis and was very sickly and nerve damage in her feet, and I said to her, "You're in really bad shape. You're on a vegan diet. You're not taking B12 for the whole years, and you're causing yourself to have a major problem here, and you've got to start taking high doses of B12." And she said, "Dr. Shelton doesn't advocate that, and I'm not going to take pills. I'm not going to take that." And then she passed away too. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that philosophical rigidity is just stunning sometimes, where people are rigidly follow their gurus to destroy their brain or something, you know what I mean? So B12 is a major issue.
Right.
Another issue I talk about is DHA in vegans, because we've taken bloodless in my career in the last 30 years. I've taken bloodless on tons of people with vegan diets, and some have the levels that are adequate, others have levels that are mid-range, and other levels that are strikingly deficient or even getting no production. And this is on people that are eating healthy diets, that are doing all this, trying to do things right. In other words, there's this big genetic difference in the ability to convert ALA into long-chain EPA and then DHA. Mm-hmm. And my consistent observation of people developing dementia on vegan diets in their very later years. A friend of mine's mother's just getting demented now, and she's in great health, and she's in her 90s now. She lived without dementia in her 80s, but in her 90s she got dementia. If we're pushing the envelope to people living to be 100 years old, we got to protect their brain. It's a simple thing. It's not complicated to take an omega-3 blood test or to take an omega-3 supplement, because there are some things we don't get ideal levels on a vegan diet. So some people are trying to, some messaging in the vegan community is that the vegan diet is adequate without any supplements, and we're talking here about B12 and DHA and EPA and zinc and vitamin D, and zinc and vitamin D. Vitamin D is obviously the sunshine vitamin. People don't have to take that if they have adequate exposure to sunlight or their vitamin D levels are adequate. But some people don't produce enough vitamin D from the sun as effectively as other people do, and some people's levels can be very low. Over my career, I've seen some people with vitamin D levels between 5 and 7, very, very low levels. I had one man come in to me as a patient. He couldn't digest food and he was very emaciated. And almost everything he ate would vomit back up again. Mm-hmm. He went to multiple doctors, couldn't figure out what was wrong. He even had a doctor who wanted to do a surgery on his esophageal sphincter. And he went to another who wanted to give him psychotic drugs to relax his digestion. Another doctor wanted to do something else. But finally, I took his vitamin D level, and I fixed him in about a month of taking vitamin D. His problem went away. He said his nutritional guru, told him you didn't need vitamin D, and this is so there's no really. I'm more conservative and cautious in making sure we don't get people into trouble by giving blanket recommendations for all people and thinking that just the diet's going to work for everybody. So we see people having problems with zinc deficiency, and over my career too, I've seen people that, especially on raw food, fruitarian diets, have led to people developing more propensity for developing fungal infections and pneumonia with aging due to low levels of zinc. We know we absorb zinc. We don't absorb zinc as well from plants as we do from animal products. We only absorb about 20% of the zinc in plant foods compared to 80% of the zinc in animal products. And so that's another example. And there's studies that show that people that you can reduce risk of pneumonia in the elderly by making sure they have better zinc exposure. So there's some things we do to assure people have better nutritional quality in a nutritarian diet to make sure they're not risking their health on some unproven or opinion or controversy or something they would learn. We don't want people taking risks and making mistakes with their health. We have to err on the side of caution and make sure people aren't deficient in anything. And those nutrients that are the potential to be low in could also include iodine for people who are not using any seaweed or kelp, or they're not salting their food with iodine sodium. So we have also seen people with iodine deficiencies developing hypothyroidism. So you just have to be aware, and this is what we're talking about, nutritional education. We're talking about that nutritional education, letting people aware when you move to a plant-based diet and get all this constellation of incredible benefits, what are the potential nutrients that might not be optimal?
And what foods can we eat to ensure that we're getting enough? And then if we're not, maybe we do the tests,
or
and
do
maybe
some
we
supplements.
have to supplement.
Exactly. And it could be and that can vary from individual to individual what their needs might be.
Mm-hmm. So yes, you have a new center in the San Diego area.
That's right. I have a center that's been open almost a year now. Very exciting. I do see very sickly people coming there. I mean, I don't want to discourage people from coming there for the great food and the great fun and how great it is to be there. But most of the people who come there are there because they need to be there. They're usually, have some illness, and they're usually overweight, and we really do a great job in having them overcome their food addiction and having them learn how to like and then prefer to eat this way before they go home. So I really think I'm accomplishing great work there.
Wonderful. And how do we learn more about it?
Oh, drfuhrman.com. Go to the retreats tab on the website. I'll give you more information about it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing your presentation on stage today, and we'll talk again soon.
Terrific.
All right. Thanks, sir.